Welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking WWE 2K20 and we're talking about improvements to the Backstage Brawl. Now this is a follow-up video to my improved weapons video, which you can check out via the link in the description box below. But before we get into it, I want to make sure you are subscribed to the channel with the notification bell turned on so you stay up to date with all my WWE games content. Now I think it's the perfect time to talk about this subject because of what went down this past week on Monday Night Raw between Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. All hell broke loose and it led to a backstage segment. Now if you haven't seen that backstage segment, I'll link it again in the description. But if you have, then you'll know what I'm talking about, and it does indeed indicate there could be so much more when it comes to backstage brawls if you take this segment for example. Now first and foremost, this segment took place in the ring, but the superstars were handcuffed and taken to the back. And I did mention in my previous video that handcuffs could be an option for another weapon in a WWE game, and I think because WWE have utilised the handcuffs on a few occasions now, why shouldn't they be featured in WWE 2K20? Because I'll go back to what I've always said, if it's in current day WWE, it should be in the WWE game. Now to move on from that, the superstars were taken to the back, they were cuffed, and then chaos unfolded backstage. We had Becky Lynch, Charlotte and Ronda Rousey being put in the back of police cars, being put in the back of normal cars or unmarked police cars, I guess they were. But you know, these three were beating the living crap out of each other, kicking each other in the face in the back seat, handcuffed. Then somehow, some way, Ronda Rousey kicked in one of the glass windows, it smashed. Charlotte Flair then amazingly makes her way out of the car, and then Rousey's in the front seat trying to drive one of the cars. It's a pretty cool segment from WWE because they don't do this kind of stuff very often, and it does give you a throwback to the days of the Attitude Era where anything can happen. And saying that anything can happen, well, that should be the same case for a WWE game. So what am I getting at? Well, backstage brawls this year and the previous year have been pretty limited when it comes to interacting with objects, items. We used to get a lot more from the old SmackDown versus Raw days. You'd be able to interact with things and things would either blow up in your face or you'd be able to actually use them to enhance damage on your opponent. And in current WWE games like 2K19, the interaction is just way less. For example, you can interact with the forklift. It can lift up and you can climb on top of it, but that's about it. You can't actually go out of your way and drive the forklift. Now we're seeing Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch fighting inside the car. I think that should be an option, that you could actually delve in and throw your opponent in there and see maybe a cutscene where you attack your opponent. I think you should be able to smash the glass window of a car with your opponent's head or whatever, another body part. I think that should be an option too. And I think even in some instances, you should be able to maybe even drive the car or maneuver the car. So you could maybe then put it in a position where, a bit like a table, but much bigger, but you can actually maneuver that car so you can either perform something on it or perform something with it. So I think that those options should be in a WWE game. I think that the options backstage are too restricted at the moment because you're going backstage to enhance damage on your opponent. You're going backstage to cause more chaos because the action is supposed to unfold in the ring. So it should feel more chaotic backstage, but in all honesty, at the moment, it feels more controlled. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of interaction with objects or items or things that can inflict damage to your opponent. So really, you don't really get much of a one-up going backstage as you do to maybe pulling out a weapon from under the ring. It's not really much different, and it should be. It should feel like a specialty. If you go backstage, for example, the vending machine, you should be able to slam your opponent's head against that vending machine. The vending machine should dent. Maybe you could even interact where, you know, a can drops down, you pick it up, and then you crack your opponent in the face with it. The cafeteria area, the table should be able to be broken. And although you can actually throw things around, you can't actually pick up those objects and utilize them to any degree. And most notably in the parking lot, as you've seen from Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch, there is so much that could be done. You could interact with the forklift, you could even run your opponent over. Maybe in some instances, some of the weapon interaction is an oh my god moment that could end a match. If you get to trigger that, then it actually ends the match, because of course there may be no coming back from that. But I think, like, you know, if you have some mini games, if you have weapon interaction where there's a tussle, a back and a forth, and then there are some oh my god weaponry moments, it will just make the backstage experience so much more fun. And I have to say that the build to WrestleMania this year has had its ups and downs. I don't feel it's living up to the expectation that it should, because it's WrestleMania, and over previous years the build to WrestleMania has been quite flat. But that segment on Raw was one segment that I thought, well, this is cool, because this is WWE trying to do something outside the box with the women of the WWE to enhance their match at WrestleMania. And using that backstage segment, particularly my favourite moment, I'd absolutely love to be able to do this, is to stash your opponent in the back of the car like you saw Ronda Rousey, and then Rousey pokes her head out just like you saw, and then Charlotte comes out of nowhere and delivers a devastating knee to Ronda Rousey. It was so good, and I'd love to be able to do something like that backstage in a WWE game. So you get my gist, you see what I'm saying here, and what I'm going to ask you guys is to let me know which areas you would like to see improved, because at the moment we've got, you know, the actual gorilla position, which really has nothing in it. I think you have a monitor. I don't even know if you can really interact with that. I think you have a table there, but there's not much going on there. It's not a true gorilla position, is it? Because if you actually go and look at WWE's gorilla position, there's a lot more going on there. So it would be nice maybe if 2K revamped that gorilla position. Maybe you can see some bookers backstage, some agents backstage. I think that would look quite cool, and you can maybe interact with them or just interact with the surroundings. Also as well, you've got the office areas. Really can't do much there either. I think you can do a power bomb on the big desk table, but it's just so limited. The locker rooms, you get a little bit more interaction at the moment. You actually have a briefcase backstage that you can use on your opponent, tables and chairs. You've got the hallways, of course. There's a fire extinguisher which you can use, and things kind of fall over like structures of sets, which I quite like. If you knock something, it actually falls down. It doesn't disappear either. That's important. I don't like things just disappearing, because that's not like real life. If you hit someone with something and you drop it, it should stay. And of course as well, then you've got the parking lot, and you have got a few other little areas, but overall, if you weigh up each room and each section of the backstage, are you really getting much out of them? I think the parking lot is where you get the most interaction, because you can climb on top of things, you can do the oh my god on the limo, but I feel like there could be so much more done if each section is taken individually and worked and thought about a little bit more. And there's no greater evidence of this than back in the day, and it is a shame that I have to go and refer back to a game which is so many more years old, with the SmackDown versus Raw set of games where you had the opportunity to interact with things and cause absolute chaos. I think in some instances you could even be electrocuted. So, I mean, that's a fun element to have in there. When you interact with something and you see it happen, you're like, wow, I like that moment, that's a cool spot. And I don't think you get that with the backstage brawls at the moment. You're just kind of like, meh. The powerbomb on the limo is cool, but there should be some more work with that. And also as well, I think if you do the powerbomb, if I remember rightly, on the limo, and it breaks the glass, if you actually save to the highlight reel, then the actual limo and the glass is no longer broken. I could be wrong, but I think I remember us trying to do this for the first, or right at the beginning of this year's universe mode, and we went into the highlight reel to try and take a clip, and boom, the glass is no longer broken. So that's really disappointing as such, that it doesn't actually save what you've created. And that's the whole point of the highlight reel. It should take exactly what you captured, and then when you go into the highlight reel, let's just say you want the screen to be fixed, maybe you have the option in there to do that. But don't, when I capture something and I save it to the highlight reel, don't take it away from me, 2K, please. Let me have it. That's what I want. And what I want as well, and I want to get your views and opinions on it, is a more improved backstage brawl. You saw what WWE are up to when we go backstage. Why can't we have something like that in a WWE game? Maybe we'll throw in a few police cars too. What do you think about that? But I want to get your views and opinions on this. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your suggestions. Which areas do you think need the most improvements? Which areas do you think would work best? And what sort of weaponry in terms of objects and items would you like to interact with? Because we did talk about, the standard weapons in my weapons improvement video. Again, link in the description. But these would be more like things like the vending machine or something like a car. Much bigger objects where you can hit a button, interact, and then boom, something awesome happens. So I want to get your views and opinions on this. I definitely thought this was worth talking about the minute I watched that segment between Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. And I'll ask you the question too whilst we're at it. Who do you want to win at WrestleMania in the main event? Are you rooting for the man? Are you rooting for Charlotte? Or do you want Ronda Rousey to be victorious on the grandest stage of them all? I did want Becky. I don't mind Ronda. I actually think Ronda is great to watch in ring. Some people aren't so keen, but I do really like the way Ronda has that smash mouth style. And then when I saw that knee from Charlotte this past week on Raw, that knee as Ronda Rousey had her head poking out of the car, I was just like, damn, that was awesome. And I did actually for a moment take a step back and think about things here. Although it could be a boring outcome, everybody wants Becky Lynch, I feel, to do it. And maybe it should be, because you're supposed to have that feel-good moment at WrestleMania. And it would give many that satisfaction if Becky was to lift the two championships. But personally, deep down, Charlotte is the superior athlete when it comes to being, the sports entertainer. If you ever watch Charlotte in the ring, she is amazing to watch. So that kind of came back up into my head when I was watching all of this, thinking to myself, yeah, Charlotte could be quite a cool moment for her to be given that crowning moment in the main event. And I wouldn't put it past WWE to maybe do that, because they do seem to lean towards Flair quite a lot. But I want to get your views on that, and I guess we'll bring this video to a close. What do you want improved for backstage brawls? You can check out my weapons video now, and all that's left to be said is please rate, comment and subscribe. The backstage area at the moment is totally unutilized. It could be so much bigger, so much better. Let's hope it happens in WWE 2K20. This is Delzinski signing out.